We rarely talk about this openly, but it's common. You have a year that just isn't your best. Maybe you were dealing with burnout, family issues, a toxic project, a manager who didn't support you, or a role that was simply a mismatch with your skills. You did what you could, but you know, if you're honest, that last year didn't showcase you at your best. The uncomfortable question is, what does that mean for how people see you now? And the more important question is, what can you do about it this year? January is a natural psychological reset point. People expect change. The key is to make that reset intentional, not just hopeful. Step 1, get specific about the story you think exists. Start by writing it down in simple language, how you believe you're currently perceived. Not in catastrophic terms like everyone thinks I'm terrible, but in plausible ones. It could be, I think some people see me as less responsive than I used to be. Or maybe it's, I might be viewed as reactive instead of proactive. Or I could be seen as more of a reliable executor than as a strategic partner. Then ask, where is this based on actual feedback or observable behavior? Or where might my inner critic be amplifying it? This doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. It's your starting hypothesis. Step 2, identify whose perception actually matters most. You don't need a reputation reset with everyone. Focus on a small group of people whose view most strongly affects your opportunities. Your manager, 1 to 3 key peers you work with frequently, 1 or 2 senior leaders who influence talent decisions in your area. If those people see you clearly and positively, the rest is much easier to repair over time. Step 3, choose the new patterns you want people to notice. Reputations are built on repeated experiences, not single moments. And that's good news. You don't have to orchestrate some grand reinvention. You need to pick 1 or 2 observable shifts and stick with them. For example, if you felt seen as scattered or reactive, become the person who brings structure. Show up to recurring meetings with a simple agenda. Offer to recap decisions and next steps. Turn vague conversations into concrete plans. If you felt invisible or maybe actually sidelined, raise your hand for a visible opportunity. It could be presenting part of a project to leadership, owning cross-functional check-ins, or leading a retrospective meeting. You're not trying to dominate the room all of a sudden, just to be seen in a context that highlights the strengths you know you have. And if you felt left behind or overwhelmed, start closing loops faster. Respond to key stakeholders with, got it, here's what I'll do, and by when. When you can't do something, be explicit about renegotiating the timeline and communicating that. Reliability is reputation fuel. Pick shifts that line up with who you actually are at your best. Things that are stretchy but sustainable. Step 4, consider a candid reset with your manager. You don't need to rehearse or rehash your worst moments, but you can name that you're treating this as a reset. For example, you might say, last year was challenging for me in X and Y ways, and I don't feel I showed my best work. I've thought about how I want to approach this year differently, particularly around A and B. Here's what I'm focusing on. I'd really value your perspective and any feedback as we go forward. You're not asking for absolution. You're showing ownership and signaling change. Step 5, give it time, but not forever. Reputations don't shift in 2 weeks, but they can shift meaningfully in 1 to 2 quarters, especially when your new behaviors are tied to real outcomes that make other people's lives easier. So pay attention to small signals. Does your manager start using different language about you in meetings? Do peers come to you for certain kinds of help or input more often? And do you hear yourself being described differently when people introduce you around the office? If nothing is budging after a sustained effort, that's data too. And it might be a sign to consider a team or a company change, or at least to go get feedback. But often you'll see subtle shifts long before anything formal changes. Lean into those. Resetting your reputation in January isn't about pretending last year didn't happen. It's about giving people new, consistent evidence about who you are now. Over time, that evidence speaks louder than any one hard season.